at some point, like I think from about Rotator onwards, I was feeling just like complete bundle of nerves before every single fight.
Before I was saying Hydra has a good ground game. End Game should be named ground game, not End Game.
One of the reasons this was the best season was because the robot driving was spectacular.
From a show drama standpoint, for that stuff just to happen, it's just so much fun to watch it unfold.
Today we're diving into the season finale of BattleBots with End Game and Whiplash.
On this episode of
Behind the Battle.
All right, everyone, we're back with Greg Munson, co-creator of BattleBots. It's been kind of a crazy season. How do you feel about the way things turned out?
I love it. This season has been so much fun. It's great that a whole new batch of bots has sort of come up and now is top contender category, right? So like, back in the day, Ribot, Uppercut, and those kind of bots, even Shatter and even Mammoth, no one would have thought Mammoth or Shatter would have made the top 16, but they did. These obscure bots with different attack strategies actually made the top 16. And so the top 16 was diverse. It wasn't all spinners. It had new bots. It had up and coming bots. It had teams that are just now getting really well established. And of course it had the top seeds as well. And many top seeds were knocked out in these giant upsets. So from a show drama standpoint, for that stuff just to happen, it's just so much fun to watch it unfold.
We're on with co-creator and CEO of BattleBots, Trey Roski. Trey, tell me about Endgame's run this season.
Those guys are just great. Those guys are real characters, and they really came to win.
Yeah.
From the very first fight, and to their last fight, they really came to win, and they've really perfected and dialed in the robot. So the day the robots were supposed to ship was when Gavin Newsom shut down, California. So we told the contestants, just hold your robots. The show's been postponed. We'll let you know what's going to happen. Now, most of the robots, people procrastinate, but most of the robots were done. Robots were ready. These guys pulled them out of their boxes. They drove them around. One of the reasons this was the best season was because the robot driving was spectacular. Then you ask yourself, why was it spectacular? Well, it was spectacular because they got to practice with their robots, because very rarely do they get to drive them, before they show up at the event, because they just finished them that night or, 10 hours before, if that. And, so I think they got to pull them out. I think they got to drive them. I think they drove them into the curb, found out what broke and fixed it and perfected it. And I think that really showed with Endgame and a lot of the robots. But, these guys, Endgame practice, you could tell. They had driven their robot. They had spun up their weapon and hit a curb, and found out what broke and what failed and, what didn't survive and then figured out ways of fixing it. And I think that showed. I think the delay in time gave them that little extra oomph to make the robots that much better and practice with them.
Welcome back, Jack and Nick from Team Endgame. Woo, you guys have had a season. At what point during the event, like the entire BattleBots event, did you guys think we might win this?
I think it was after the Shatter fight went so well. When the Shatter fight went so well, the weapon was running like so well. It hit so hard. Shatter got like really messed up in places. We realized at that point that we could actually take this the whole way.
We were carrying a little bit more confidence at that point, because we did have our rotator fight where we got smacked around for 3 minutes and didn't lose our drive, which has been a big thing in the last few years. So, having a little bit more confidence in the drive kind of helped. But, I think like when we made top 16, we were pretty happy with ourselves, and everything from there on out was kind of, a big bonus to us. And to go all the way is just, unbelievable.
So my question now is, how did you feel about Whiplash?
So Whiplash, those are the boys, and the mom and dad, they've been such good friends. It's funny, Greg and I run into them in the weirdest of places, like go to some, robot thing or DARPA thing or something like that. And, they're there and hey, and they're just such great kids. And they, we've seen them grow up since little kids. So I kind of feel, watch their evolution. And, another great thing about BattleBots is it really pulls families together and gives families something to do, whether it's your dad and mom or your grandparents or, whatever it is. It pulls you in. You're using the garage. Dad, you can't park the car in the garage. I'm building my BattleBot, and then dad wants to help at some point, and dad gets into it, mom gets into it, and they all find their roles and what they're good at. They're just characters. They're a great team. They're so special to be at the event, and they're so helpful to other contestants, and everybody loves them.
We're on with Team Whiplash. As you guys started getting closer to the end of the season, what was going through your minds?
I would say
it was a dream come true. It's hard to believe we did as well as we did, but I mean, it's not hard to believe because we put the work in, but you have to be a little bit lucky, and luck favors the prepared. We were extremely prepared, so that's one thing I think that really helped us. So.
And like what Jason said, like you got to take it one fight at a time.
Yeah.
Like just look at the fight in front of you. If you win that, you move on to the next step. So I think the one fight at a time philosophy is really important, because like you could be thinking about your strategy for all these opponents, then you lose your first fight, and like what's the point? You don't even get to try anything.
We weren't really looking into the future.
Yeah.
We had a plan. Our future, we had a plan for the future as different bots. Like Matt, we had an armor configuration for most of the robots, only a couple, and we wound up losing to them. but that was we'll be ready next time. So we'll figure it out. It's a big game of rock paper scissors, and next time we're going to be the rock.
You find out you're going to go up against Whiplash. How were you guys feeling before the match?
I mean, I was feeling pretty nervous, but I think at some point, I think from about Rotator onwards, I was feeling just like complete bundle of nerves before every single fight. Oh, no. It's a good thing Jack's the driver.
I was pretty calm. I think they were doing some of the bounty fights right before that fight, like the final bounty ones, and I was asleep in the waiting area and just hearing the clashes going on. And we ran our long forks against Tantrum, so after that, we're like, well, Whiplash knows about our long forks now. So we had to go and get some even longer ones cut, just in case they had longer ones than our ones cut, because we knew that whoever had the longest forks was probably going to win the ground game in this fight. And in our rental car, we had these like 600mm forks just in case, but luckily we didn't need them, so we got to run the same ones again.
Matt and Jason, one at a time, same question, what was going through your heads?
But yeah, once we made it to the top 32, you see the tournament start, we got to the round of 16, we got to the round of 8, and then I think after our Hydra win, when we were walking back into the pits, I sort of started really feeling okay, we're back in the semifinals again. This is where it kind of starts to get really real. Then when we won the fight against Black Dragon, we're walking back to the pits again, and I'm like, oh, we're in the finals. We've never been here before. At least at BattleBots, we've never been here before. The funny thing about that is after Black Dragon, we really didn't have that many repairs to do. So we were waiting a whole entire day with a robot that was ready to fight, just sitting there waiting a whole day. So that was kind of a weird feeling, just sitting there kind of contemplating, do we change anything about the robot? No, it's been doing pretty good. We're just going to send it in as it is, and whatever happens, happens.
I mean, over the course of 2 weeks, I felt pretty confident in the beginning, but after that Sawblaze loss, I was really just not trying to count my chickens before they hatch or whatever. I remember before the Sawblaze fight, I felt extremely confident this year, just because a lot of the top names like Fight Force weren't there, and it was a good year to take advantage of for us. We definitely had the straight shot to the top, especially when I saw the bracket. I felt more confident, and yeah, it doesn't feel real until you're there, and then it still doesn't feel real.
Now it's time to talk about the big one, Whiplash versus End Game.
The Whiplash fight was pretty awesome. We were I think Jack was rooting for it. He wanted to fight Whiplash over Black Dragon, whereas I was kind of hoping we'd fight Black Dragon instead. I thought we had a better chance, but it turns out I think we probably would have got both of them.
Ooh, okay.
All right then. I'm not sure about that. It was a good fight. We had a lot of thinking leading up to it into our strategy, and we took a lot of learning from the Tantrum fight, because they keep getting under us because we keep lifting our sides up and stuff like that. So we dialed the weapon back a little bit and just kind of faced them the whole time, and yeah, it was enough. It was enough to get underneath them and get the hits we needed. I think early on we bent up their lifter, which was really handy to us, because that was the scariest thing for us, because we still didn't really have a South Rider at that point. What we did, we had a South Rider, but on about the 7th south right in testing, it always broke. So we weren't sure how many times it was gonna work. So we were really kind of staying away from that lifter.
Just us being able to keep ourselves planted onto the ground and facing him constantly was really what got us to win. Like, the weapon was obviously running not too fast, like way slower than we normally run it. And when we did hit him, we weren't doing like the regular in-game like massive damage that we normally do. I think there was one moment where we were like fully submerged inside of him. There's a lot of air in the middle of Whiplash, apparently.
Whiplash was fully on top of us, and we just weren't hitting anything. Like,
I know, like, and when we separated, he could still lift. Like, we had the weapon like right up in the middle of him, and for some reason, none of the lifter got broken.
Tell me about this fight.
I knew it would be a struggle just because before I was saying Hydra has a good ground game. End Game should be named ground game, not End Game. I stole that from a Facebook comment somewhere, but I mean, they had like wedgelets similar to Bite Force, but they designed this to beat Bite Force. So we knew it was like the ground game of all ground games. It was, like these 1/2-inch thick steel forks that were maybe 1.5 feet long that just super low, flat on the floor, spring loaded into the ground. Yeah. So it was like we weren't gonna get under them unless we got like a perfect angle or hit them from the side or from the back. So in this fight, I saw their semifinal fight against Tantrum. And Tantrum was really smart. He like drove, kind of like would drive around him and make him gyro. And when End Game would do a little tilt in the air, Tantrum would sneak underneath and got some hits in. And Tantrum did pretty well that fight. I mean, they got knocked out, but they did really well. But unfortunately for us, I think End Game learned from that fight, and they decided to maybe dial it down a little bit when they fought us. And I think, I can't say for sure, I never asked them, but I think they spun their weapon a little bit slower and were driving a little bit slower and making sure not to tilt when they turned. Yeah. And that kind of like, when the first 2 seconds of the fight, I saw that they changed their strategy, and I was like, this is going to be hard. And then they got us at one point. I was trying to drive circles around him, trying to get him to gyro so I could sneak him underneath. And it just wasn't going as we thought. So I kind of at some point had to just go in, and they got under us, pushed us into the screws. And there's one point where I had to lift our arm out of the way, and their disc was like in the gap that our arm usually goes in. Yeah. And like, it was just spinning there. We just saw sparks shooting out, but like they weren't actually hitting any components for a while. But I think they eventually got into a weapon motor and just like annihilated our spinner motors. After that point, we were just lifters. So I was like, okay, like this is when you just need to just do anything you can to get any sort of advantage in this fight. So I tried to jock for position more. But my one regret in this fight, I won't say I have many regrets in this tournament, but there was, I think, 2 points where we were in like a stalemate, like a pushing fight. So I should have normally, if I don't get under someone, I back off and go back and try to get under somewhere else. But with End Game, that wasn't really an option. And by force of habit, I kind of got out of our pushing fight and tried to reposition. When in reality, I should have stayed in that pushing fight and just kept pushing and trying to draw out the clock. And maybe they, smoke a drive motor or something. But at the end of the day, if like the 1 in a million chance their drive motor smoked or something in that pushing fight, we really wouldn't have won that fight. They were kicking our butt pretty bad.
It was brutal.
Expensive.
They deserved that giant. They really, really deserved that giant. So after that point, they just hit us, flipped us over. And when we were upside down, kind of self-righting, they pushed us into the corner and just got one hit that just knocked us, over the wall. And that was it. Yeah. That was fight over.
Fight over.
And to finish the season, how we started with an out of the arena was pretty sweet cherry on top. So, like it was a tough match for us because we really didn't want to get flipped. So being able to finish him off in a convincing way and just kind of end the match like that was pretty nice.
Did they tell you what was at the bottom of their bot?
So on the bot, so at one point when we were in the pits, both we were kind of ready for the fight. They were ready to fight. Like none of us had much work to do. But I saw at one point they were kind of secretly hiding over there working on the robot. I was like, what could they possibly be doing? But what they were actually doing is they were sneaking Whiplash stickers from our table and put a ton of Whiplash stickers on the bottom of the robot. And they wrote, instead of End Game, I think they wrote End Me on the bottom. So had they been had they been flipped over and lost by being flipped over, it would have had like, 100 Whiplash stickers on the bottom.
It's an end
I mean,
like finish me off.
So they were really prepared for everything.
Yeah.
They were prepared to win, prepared to lose.
That was great.
I get nervous as we start getting up to like, I'm almost relieved when we finally lose. It's too much pressure. and there was a part of me, we all kind of said like in the finals, we were disappointed, but there's a part of us that kind of feels like we've been working for this goal for so long. Then what happens once we reach it? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, now what?
I don't know. Paul seemed to find a way.
I guess. I don't know. I wasn't that like disappointed. I was kind of like, okay, good, we'll do it next year.
Yeah, like obviously you're disappointed when you lose, but I think a big part of it for me was I was just like kind of proud of like the legacy of Whiplash over the last 4 years. Like we brought it to RoboGames 2017. We got runner-up, then we got semifinals BattleBots 2018, quarterfinals 2019, then finals 2020. So like that's just the consistency that we've had the last 4 years. Like I think that's something we're really proud of, and that we're gonna keep going.
It's weird to think of us as like one of the top tier bots, and people would say that and they go, "What? Who are you talking about?" But I mean, we are, and that's the product of our work.
In theory, you guys are going to have to go up against Bite Force next season. How do you feel about that?
I think we both came to the conclusion that it's probably going to happen episode 1 main event. I think honestly, we would have really loved to have fought him this season, most of all, because like the improvements we made to the front of the robot with the forks, they're really good against wedgelets, which was Paul's, like his advantage. And if we had turned up with the forks and Paul hadn't had a season to look at them and then think about how to deal with them or copy them in some way, then I think we would have actually done really well against him. It would have been our best shot. Now, next season, he's going to have seen what we're all about and going to come back with something to get to combat it. So it'll be a more even fight, I think.
Thank you again so much for joining us again. It's been amazing to have you back. So proud of you guys in the finals, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with next season, and I will talk to you very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Great seeing you. Thank you.
Trey Roski, this has been absolutely incredible. I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us today, and we've learned so much.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for thinking of me. Me and Greg sometimes get bypassed, and we appreciate just people remembering we're here. So thank you.
Greg, this has been incredible, as always. Season 5 was a blast, and we are so pumped for Season 6.
People, if you want to sign up for Season 6, go for it. Registration.battlebots.com. I hope you can. Season 6 will be awesome. Thanks, everyone, for a great Season 5. Tyler, thank you. Thanks to HEXBUGs and Vex for everything. And we'll see you guys again in the Battle Box.
Thanks for watching this season of Behind the Battle. Subscribe to the HEXBUG and Vex Robotics channels for exclusive BattleBots content and so much more. See you next time.